Hello, authors. 'Tis I, freelance fiction editor Miranda Darrow, here with my weekly video on writing craft. Once a month, I review a book on the craft of writing, and all this year I've been focused on exploring books that outline story structures. This collection would not be complete without a discussion of the hero's journey. And I actually this week have reviewed two different books that really talk about it. And so, first is Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces. So this is the source of what they call a monomyth, which is the hero's journey. So this one's a brick. You could hold open a door with it. And the second is The Writer's Journey. I actually read the 25th year anniversary by Christopher Vogler. And so the 25th anniversary has some updated material that I'll talk about in a little bit, but it gives a more recent update to the hero's journey from the perspective of a screenwriter. The hero's journey is a 12-stage beat progression that is a popular structure that was originally derived from Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces. And then Christopher Vogler adapted it more recently. It's essentially a more detailed character arc for your story's hero, which is overlaid onto a traditional three-act structure that many successful Hollywood movies, such as Star Wars and others, follow pretty faithfully. I do want to note that this story structure, just like the heroine's journey, including the craft book on the heroine's journey by Gail Carriger that I reviewed a few months ago, that the gender of the main character does not matter. Female characters, non-binary characters, even non-human characters can be heroes of the stories that are written with the hero's journey character arcs, just like male characters can have a heroine's journey story arc. So onward to the 12 story beats that are split into 3 acts. Like many people who talk about the hero's journey, I'm going to give examples of these 12 beats and line them up with scenes from the movie Star Wars: A New Hope, which was number 4 in the series, as released in 1977. All right, so first, we're going to go through the 12 beats, and with each one, I will line it up with a scene in Star Wars, or some of them have a couple. Step 1 is the ordinary world. This is where the hero exists before their story truly begins. They're blissfully ignorant of their adventure to come. It's their everyday life where we learn key details about who they are, their outlook, their nature, their capabilities. This establishes the hero as relatable and human, making it easy for readers to connect and empathize. In Star Wars, Luke is living in Tatooine, comfortable but not loving it. He longs for more, and he dreams about joining the rebellion to fight against the Empire and learning to fly and be a pilot for the rebellion. We see a regular family meal with Luke with his aunt and his uncle. Step 2 is the call to adventure. Hero's journey begins when they receive some kind of message, a threat to their safety or their family or their way of life, maybe their community. It could be a dramatic event or a quiet conversation, but it disrupts the comfort that the main character feels in the ordinary world, and it sets the challenge or quest in motion. For this, Luke's uncle buys 2 droids, C-3PO and R2-D2, and they look like ordinary droids. But then Luke realizes that R2-D2 has a hidden message that might be helpful for the rebels. He sees this message from Princess Leia requesting help from Obi-Wan. R2-D2 escapes. Luke follows, encountering old Ben Kenobi, whom he didn't realize was the Obi-Wan that Leia was talking to. Ben talks to Luke and tries to get involved. Step 3 in the hero's journey is the refusal of the call. Even if the hero is eager, the hero has fears or doubts or something to overcome. So they're going to refuse this call, afraid of the road ahead. The problem seems too big and the home feels too comfortable. This resistance is human and bonds us with this main character. Luke comes up with excuses why he doesn't pack up immediately and head to Alderaan with Obi-Wan. It's too far. I've got people counting on him. Lots of complaining. The next step in the hero's journey, step 4, is called meeting the mentor. At this critical moment, the hero meets a mentor who offers something essential: an object, advice, training, confidence. It helps the hero gather their courage to face the quest. Now, we've already met the mentor, but we see him again. So Luke returns home and he finds his aunt and uncle killed. So home is no longer the safe place. He blames Obi-Wan and himself for being distracted and not being there. Obi-Wan says, Luke, you just would have been a third body. This way you can join the rebellion and do something because you've got nothing holding you back. Obi-Wan convinces Luke this is the only way to honor his family. And of course, at the hero's journey, we are now at the first turning point. We're breaking into the second act, with the hero leaving the safety of the known world and starting their journey. So step 5 on the 12 stages of the hero's journey is we're crossing the threshold. The hero, now ready to act, commits to their journey. Whether they're leaping willingly or they're pushed, they cross from the known world into the unknown. They're taking a risk or facing something that they've avoided. This threshold crossing marks their commitment. George Lucas, the mastermind behind Star Wars, has acknowledged that he modeled the screenplay for Star Wars after the hero's journey, and that's never more obvious than in the scene where Luke, Obi-Wan, and the droids standing on top of a huge cliff looking down in the valley below. And Obi-Wan says, Mos Eisley Spaceport, a wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. We are on the threshold. We are standing on a cliff and we're looking down and there's danger. We are leaving the known and relatively safe world and starting an adventure in the danger zone. So it's time to cue Kenny Loggins' soundtrack from Top Gun. I'm going to ride into the danger zone. Step 6 is there's tests, allies, enemies. Outside of their comfort zone, the hero faces challenges, physical, emotional, interpersonal, that test the hero. They encounter allies and enemies and shape their growth. These tests reveal the character and strengthens the reader's connections to the hero. This is the longest of the beats in the hero's journey. If you follow the Save the Cat story structure, this would be the fun and game section, which takes up a big chunk of the book. So in this section, in Star Wars, Luke recruits some allies, Han, Solo, and Chewbacca. And he also irritates a potential enemy in the bar. They wander around for a while. There's more, but you get the picture. The bulk of the action in the middle of the movie. They start heading to Alderaan, Han, and Chewie transporting Luke and Obi-Wan, and they are captured by the Death Star. And while they're there, they attempt to rescue Princess Leia, who helps them evade stormtroopers. Step 7 in the hero's journey, approach to the inmost cave. Joseph Conrad used this term, inmost cave, to be either a literal danger zone or an internal struggle. I don't like inmost cave as a term, but I'm not in charge of naming things. As they near this inmost cave, the hero reflects on their path. They may need rest, support, or time for comfort in their fears. This pause heightens the stakes and the tension. It's like the scenes that they used to include in the season finale of Survivor, when they had only 4 contestants going into a 2-hour finale show, and they would go on some kind of walk, and they'd walk past all the names of the people, the contestants that were eliminated before them, and they reflect on what they had done with that person. I do not miss that feature at all. Get to it. But in this step, here we are pondering, self-reflection, getting ready for the big battle. For Star Wars, they literally go into a cave, that's the Death Star. We're in the belly of the beast, and we're trying to avoid getting caught. And then they end up in a giant trash compactor that nearly squashes them. Step 8 in the hero's journey is the ordeal. This is a defining crisis, and it's sometimes life-threatening, but sometimes it's more of an existential crisis. The hero draws on everything they've learned so far to face this trial. They will often undergo a symbolic or real death of somebody in their party, emerging transformed with new insight or power to fulfill their destiny. While they are aboard the Death Star, they try to evade detection, but they are almost caught. Obi-Wan sacrifices himself and takes on Darth Vader so Luke and his pals can escape. It's not until you see the prequel movies that came out in the 90s that you really know what it meant for Obi-Wan to face Darth Vader. But at the time, it's just like, no, Obi-Wan, but they're like, he's old. That's what I thought when I saw it in 77 when I was a child. Now I think maybe he wasn't that old. So Obi-Wan's death, his sacrifice, enables Luke and his pals to escape, but also changes them. It's a sacrifice that's very common. It's often the mentor, but sometimes the sacrifice is the love interest dying or some other awful ordeal. All right, now we're on to step number 9, the reward, seizing the sword. Having survived, the hero claims a reward. It could be knowledge, power, peace, reconciliation, or it could be actual treasure. This reward is the fruit of the ordeal, and it prepares them for the final leg. They have more information, and Luke and Han and Chewie and Leia all know where to locate the rebels to pass along this information about how to destroy the Death Star. So off we go to make a plan. Leia knows all this because she was the one who'd sent the message to Obi-Wan in the first place. So step 10, the road back. The hero begins their return, possibly torn between personal goals and the greater good. They may face new risks or revelations as they head towards home, and they are changed, but they are not yet finished. In Star Wars, Luke and pals fly to the rebel base at Yavin 4, where the Death Star plans are extracted from R2-D2, and they uncover the weakness in the design. For fans of retroactive correction, the entire movie of Rogue One was made to give an after-the-fact explanation for how this huge design flaw could exist, that it was placed there intentionally by rebel scientists forced by the Empire to design the Death Star. This group of rebels all gave their lives to make sure those plans could make it out so that future rebels could take down the Death Star. Honestly, Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie. I'm glad they did it, but it cracks me up that it only exists to fill a plot hole in Star Wars. But back to Star Wars. It's time for deep contemplation, where Han Solo and Chewie decide, hey, we got our prize. We're good. And they take off and they leave Luke alone to face off against the Death Star. As a hero must in a hero's journey. If you like the counterplotting method, where you could actually gather your team to take on the big final battle, check out my video reviewing The Heroine's Journey by Gail Carriger, where I talk about stories where groups and committees take on the big bad. But that's not how Conrad rolls, with the lone crusader heading into the ordeal in the hero's journey after having abandoned or shed most of their companions. The hero is probably also prevented from asking for directions. Now we've wrapped up the second act, where they're heading into the third act to really wrap up the story. Stage 11 is resurrection. The climax brings the final confrontation with often life or death consequences for more than just the hero. The hero must rise to the occasion, risking everything. Victory here confirms their transformation and resolves the journey's tension. Luke and his fellow fighter pilots, minus Han and Chewie, start the attack of the Death Star. And they take on TIE fighters, and then Darth Vader himself hops in a ship, and the rebels take losses, including one of Luke's childhood friends. Han and Chewie show up at the end to help Luke finish the mission. Luke is able to sneak into the tiny passage and drop the bomb at the exact right time to blow up the Death Star and not blow himself up too. So that leads us to the 12th and final stage in the hero's journey, which is return with the reward. Now, fully changed, the hero returns home, bringing insight, peace, healing, or change. They may be celebrated or quietly wiser, but things are not the same as they were. The journey is ended, but their growth echoes forward, giving meaning to this quest. Wow! For Star Wars, entire planets will now be safe now that awful Death Star is gone. Yay, rebels! But Darth Vader did not go down with his ship, so he's still out there to be a villain for later movies in the series. I frequently use Star Wars, and then the entire series, as an example of how to have interim goals for each novel in a series. The goal of the movie is to destroy the Death Star, and they destroy the Death Star. It's not the end of the entire war, it's just the first battle. But they stated a goal, and they met it. It's a complete story arc, even though it's couched in a universe where more conflict and stories still exist after the ending of episode 4. So if you want to be creative and not do the goal, you may anger some readers who don't like cliffhangers. And it's not that they don't like open issues. They don't like it when you don't complete the main story arc. You can have other things out there and available, but finish a story when you're writing a novel. All right. So there we are. That's the 12 beats, and I've lined them up with Star Wars. If you want to learn more about the hero's journey story structure, you can read Joseph Conrad's The Hero with a Thousand Faces. You can read Christopher Vogler's The Writer's Journey, or you can look online. I've spent some time reading both because they are long and they're dense, and a lot of the stuff is the same stuff that I found online. I did find some fun bonus content in Vogler's 25th edition, where he had some updated examples and fun bonus materials. One of them was like cultivating vibes by using the 7 major chakras. I've never seen anything like that before. That was not on my bingo card when I started researching the hero's journey, but here we are. There are tons of articles online, and also graphics where you can find things like this, where this is somebody had put into a circle the hero's journey, and you go around in a circle and it gives all these things. I've also seen them on lines and stuff like that. So there's a lot of information out there that map out these 12 beats and put them into the 3 acts. If you're writing a hero's journey story and want to make sure that you are hitting the story beats, I can help with that. I've helped many authors who painted their characters into a corner to help come up with new ideas or a vision plan that brings meaning to this chaos. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share so you can get notified of my weekly new videos on writing, editing, and the writing life. I post new content every week, and until next week, this is Miranda Darrow, freelance fiction editor, wishing you happy writing.